Of course, broken in the breach a million times. The rule says nothing will be accepted as knowledge or understanding until it has been challenged by someone competent to challenge it. This is the rule. This is very important because it changes your readers. Look, teachers read because they're paid to care about writers. Some readers in the world, in many cases, read to find out information they need. If you go to somebody on the quad and say, excuse me, if somebody stops you on the quad and says, excuse me, can you tell me how to get to the library? And you say, okay, you go over there and turn right. Go. They don't say, oh, I doubt that. Because they're not. They don't, as readers, have the function of challenging assent. But at least in theory and in a lot of practice, your readers are different from those readers on the quad, and they're way different from teachers. Your readers have the professional function of challenging what you say.
That's where we're at.
So explaining turns out only to happen
at 24 ops, two friends.
You only explain
24 ops.
inside of value having been generated and persuasion having begun. It is an enormous mistake of PhD level writers that they try to explain first. And I know why you try to explain first. Because in school they just wanted you to explain first because the whole thing was just about seeing what you know. Start explaining. Line one. Classic thing. Begin with the definition. Teachers love this. Begin with the definition. Because it tells the teachers that what? You know the definition. Don't begin with definition, guys. So, back to D. How are you going to make it important? How do you make it important? Now the second word you say. Oh no, this is terrible. Do me a favor. Take the word name. Or worse, original. If you think that you're here to do your own original work, if you will find the synapse in your brain that is storing those words, kill it. No. When people say to me, oh, does that mean I'm here to do non-original work? No. But you're not here to do original work. You're here to do valuable work. What's the difference? You think you're here to create new knowledge? Well, you know how hard it is to create new knowledge? You create new knowledge in the next 30 seconds. All you have to do is count up the number of people who are in this room. Because nobody in the world knows how many people are in this room. No one knows. And we will create new knowledge right now. We'll just count people in this room. We'll say, okay, now we know. Is anybody going to read that paper? Why not? You're going to say, who cares how many people are in that room? Dear friend of mine, when I was a PhD student here, discovered journals by a woman in the last part of the 19th century in England. She traveled around the world and every year she wrote a journal. And somehow they ended up in a library in New York. And she was over in Norwich one day and she stumbled into a back room and there's all these journals with tons of dust on them. She grew up with dust and she said, oh my gosh, it's amazing. It's when we traveled the world for 30 years and wrote a journal every time we traveled. Came back here, wrote the grant and said, whoa, I want to spend 3 months studying this. And she got her money and she went over to Norwich. She spent 3 months and she read the whole thing and she wrote it all up and she handed it to a committee and in an hour and a half they sent it back and they said, you've got to be kidding. She said, well, I'm going to get my dissertation degree now. Right? They said, you've got to be kidding. Of course we're not going to give you a PhD. And she said, but nobody in the world knew it is what we said. Right, they said. And we still wish we didn't know what she said. Because we do not care. And she said, it's original. She said, I guarantee you it's new. And I said, no. It's new and it's original. But it is not common. And she said, that's ridiculous. It has to be knowledge. No, it's not. He was living in a positivistic world where knowledge looks like this. In a positivistic world, knowledge is just built up over time, and anytime you find out something that people didn't know, you get to just add up to this model, and knowledge just keeps on growing, and everybody people, they're human beings. There are conversations moving through time. And there's a bunch of people, and they get to say what not. Isn't that horrible? Why would those people get to say? Why would they get to say? Especially because, historically, of course, they look just like me. As my niece says to me every time she sees me, too male, too pale, too stiff. Why on earth would these people get to say what knowledge is?
She's a good girl.
Again, big problem.
I'm falling off.
And that's a fact.
I can't hang in there.
These people get to say what counts as knowledge. The good news is,
Get to it. Get to it.
way too long, way too late, way too slow. They're changing. The point is, that's the way it works. You may not like it, that's the way it works. They get to say. So, they get to say, yep, you're right. That was new. I didn't know how many people were in 302. But it doesn't count as knowledge. It doesn't have any value to us. Okay. The good news is, this thing does move through time. The other good news is, it's bound to be permanent. Stuff comes in, and unlike this model, stuff goes out. You might think of academic conversations as sort of excreting as they go. Stuff gets left behind. It's not like this. But everything gets added up, is always there forever. That's not the way it is. They go on for a while, they think things for a while, and they say, whoop, that was dumb. Don't think that anymore. They go along for a while and they say, whoa, we were doing that. Don't do that anymore. It's not this build-up model. This build-up model assumes that everything is right. You know, we think a lot of what we think right now is wrong. We just don't know what the wrong is. And we don't know what that is. We want to know. We do. We want to do it right now. But in order for us to do that, we have to be dealing with the stuff we say is knowledge. Not feel good, and that's how it works. So, the important isn't going to do it. New isn't going to do it. Original isn't going to do it. Because I talk to people and they say, you know, people don't think this is bad, they're not publishing it. Well, somebody says they don't think it's important. So you know what they do? They say, this important study. No. What is it about me that makes it feel important? What is it? Tell me the words on the page. Here's what I literally want you to do. I want you to literally, everybody in the room, I want you to literally go through 1B and circle the words, the specific words that are making it valuable to the author, to the reader. What's the first word you see? What's the first word you see that makes it valuable? Nonetheless. Next. Accepted is, but actually, why do? Accepted. Next. However. Next. Although. Next. Inconsistent. Next. Reported. Next. Anomaly. Here's my first piece of advice to you that you can use to make your writing better starting this afternoon. Spend 15 minutes a week for the rest of this year taking articles in your field, print them out so you have a hard copy, go through and circle every word in the writing that is creating value to the readers. If you see an article that you think doesn't have any of those words, send it to me. I'll give you my email. Send me your email and say, Larry, I found an article that doesn't do it. Here's what I bet. You will see none, I will see 10. And I'll 10's pop. Again, can you pop? I can do it. What's going on? How come you don't see them and I see 5 or 10? You missed them here. I see them. I know the code. Every community has its own codes. The communities you're entering have their own codes. A set of words that communicates value. You must know the codes of the communities you're working with. And they are particular to communities. Some codes are shared among a bunch of communities, some aren't. You have to know. No. You spend 15 minutes a week for the rest of this year, you'll be doing two things. One, you'll be training yourself to look for the code of creating value. The other thing you'll be doing, if you're smart, is you'll be writing down each of those words, and you'll be creating an invaluable word list. So that when it's a week before something is done, and you're doing one of your revisions, you're going to do what? You're going to do the same thing on your own work. And if you can't underline 10 words in the first 2 paragraphs, you're going to do what? You're going to go to the word list, and you're going to dump them in. Sometimes, it's that simple. Sometimes we take articles that we get published in an hour and do things. Sometimes weeks. I'm not suggesting this is always magic. Sometimes the problem is simple. The problems have to do with these people. You have to know them. As I say to undergraduates who look at me and they say, why does it take 6 years or 5 years or even 4 years to get a PhD? I think it's learning more stuff. No. Half the time is spent learning more stuff, the other half is learning the readers. I will say this again. If you do not know your readers, the particular people in a community, if you do not know these people, you are very unlikely to create value, and you are very unlikely to be persuasive. Because persuasion depends on what they doubt. If you don't know what they doubt, how on earth are you going to overcome that doubt? You must know them. It's not enough to know yourself. You gotta know your neighbors. Okay, so what is it about there's 2 things going on here then. One of them has to go on with the community of readers. Tell me the word you underline that has to do with the community. Or the word you underline in B. Which words have to do with the community? Widely accepted, reported. Those are words that prove that there was a community of people who want to understand this. You don't have those words, you're not signaling any community. What do the other words do? Nonetheless, however, although, what do they do? You do know. And find the synapse in your brain that has that voice. Here's what's going on. He has been told or taught or learned that in order to have persuasive, clear, organized prose, you had to have what are sometimes called flow words or are sometimes called transition words. Words like because and if and unless and however and although and but. Right? Are those words bad? Those words aren't bad. When it's bad to have flow, it's not bad to have flow. They have nothing to do with that. Fine. What's the difference between and but in creating value? Imagine if you go to your readers and say, hey readers, hey community, I've read your stuff. I've thought about what you think. And I have something to say. Hey readers, I've read your stuff. I know what you think. But you love. Which one are you going to do? Here's what I will say. And if somebody wants to do it right now, okay. You can name a journal. We will go to every edition of that journal in the last 20 years, and every paper will say somebody. Now he just wait. What's the difference? He says, and I understand it. I can't go to these editors and say they're wrong. And I am telling you that every article published in that journal in the last 20 years is opened by saying readers are wrong. Just look at that. Unbelievable. What's the difference? One way to put it is, you have to know the code. You have to. If you say to the people who are the dominant figures in your field, you know what? I've read all your stuff. You're idiots. They're going to go back. Don't say that. Just say that. The dominant figures in your field. I say, what do you say to them? Yeah, but if you want to learn the code, what do you suppose the code is? Yeah, but the code is wow. Whoa, I'm just amazed. You are so smart, and you contributed, and you've advanced this community through in fabulous ways. There's this thing. No, it's cool. Like, what are you doing? And then you're gonna have not an explanation. You're not explaining. You're talking to people who wrote this stuff. You don't have to explain it to them. You have to predict what they're going to doubt when you say they're wrong. So you say to them, you're wrong about this. And they say, why should I agree with you? So what you're wrong. That's what introduction is speaking. You give a quick word, or I speak to you. And they say, well, okay. Preliminary. I read your first 2 pages. Now I'll start reading the book. Why? Because you cause them to think that your work might be done. Imagine if you go to them and say, wow, your work has been really great, and now here's something new that you didn't know. See, here's what happens. People say to me, man, if I say that they've done something wrong, I'm taking a huge risk. True. You think you're not taking a risk if you do this? What's the risk you run if you do this? Hey, really smart people, I've done all your work, I've studied all your stuff, and I have something I want to add. No, that's actually a really good answer. Right? What's the risk you run there? When you say, there's something I want to add. Or worse, I'd like to put my voice in. So, no, I don't use the listen to it. Pause on that for a minute. The University of Chicago writing program is not real popular in global writing programs. And you can see why. A lot of people think we're fascists. I don't disagree. Here's what we teach people to do. We say, identify the people with power in your community and give them what they want. That's what we teach people to do. Lots of people have said to us in some version or another, you're supposed to teach people to challenge the existing community. Oh, actually, it's good. Notice that I did it inside the terms of the community. People say, why don't you teach people to have their own individual voice? And I say, I get that argument. I get the moral and ethical pressure to teach people to have their individual voices. But when I sit with somebody up in my office who's worried about their career now, it can't be about their individual voice. It's about what's going to make it valuable to their leaders. You need to understand that this program that we have is motivated by those people who have come to us and said our writing is not succeeding, and the whole program is aimed at them. How do you make them, help them succeed? There's a ton of ambition in that. You don't really care, it's putting out there. There's also the personal at-risk issue. You want me to go to this really important person with the editors of the journal and tell them they're wrong. Yeah, you need to do it under the code. You want to do it. There's polite ways to do it. There's insulting ways to do it. You need to learn how to do it in that community. You don't do it in the way you code it. It's like, what if you don't do it at all? You're going to get rejected. So, all right. Sorry for the drum. Oh my gosh, especially because we're on page 1, the third page handout. All right, page 2, page 3, sorry. It's technically, we were on page 2, because there was no page 1. Let me just show you a couple of things quickly from these top 2 paragraphs. The top paragraph, why people write essays. This is a caricature, I admit. This is a caricature to come from something trying to explain to high school students why people write essays. And I just want to show you how wrong this is, how dangerous this is, and how much some of it is actually you've adopted without knowing you've adopted. By definition, an essay is a structured, creative, written composition dealing with a specific subject from a more or less personal point of view. That's wrong. You notice that it says nothing about readers and it says nothing about value. By definition, anything you write has the function of helping your readers understand better something they want to understand well. That's what it is. Because that's what it does. I'm Wittgensteinian at this point. What something means is what it does. That's what your writing does. It helps a particular set of readers understand better something they want to understand well. That's what it's done. All this other stuff, being structured, being created, being written, dealing with subjects, is how you fulfill the function. And sometimes you do it this way, sometimes you don't. But what is immediately lost is that sense of function. People write essays because it gives them an opportunity to analyze ideas, situations, and people, and to preserve them indefinitely. You see how this is all about the writing. It's why people write essays, so that they can think. Okay, I have no problem with somebody writing an essay because they want to think. What I have a problem with is they come to my office and say my readers don't appreciate it. Well, why did you write it? I wrote it so I can think. They don't own the appreciation. They're not going to appreciate it. Right. This is very different. And you can make a case, you make a very important case, tell me about it. And argue about it, but it's not arguing. You're right. There's really more about it. I want to be clear about that. Preserve them indefinitely. Very, very dangerous idea. And you see how that's this model? This notion that you're writing preserves your ideas indefinitely? No, it does not. A student of mine who's now the chair of a philosophy department had a lot of trouble getting his first book out. He wrote this book and was working on it, kept working on it, and he sent it to me. He was actually a student of mine in his first year here, and we used to write the 2-page papers and I would give him 6 pages of comments. So now he sends me a 400-page book and he says, oh, this is cool, I'm going to get 800 pages of comments. I sent you 2 words. He said, you're done. And he came back and he said, no, I'm not done, I can make it better. I said, you're done. He said, but Larry, this is ridiculous. I look at myself and I see I can make it better. I said, Jonathan, you're done. He said, but somebody's going to read this in 500 years and I don't want to find mistakes. Jonathan, nobody's going to read it in 500 years. The function of your writing is to move this conversation forward. You cannot do that if it's in your desk drawer. Your function is to move a conversation forward. It's not to preserve indefinitely. Because guess what? You could be some of the stuff, count on it, you're going to be some of the stuff at some point that gets left behind. This is not a bad thing. If you think it's going to be preserved indefinitely, it's wrong. You're not. And he looked at me and he said, but Aristotle. I said, come on. Not only does it ensure permanence of ideas for the permanence of ideas, no it doesn't. It also ensures a degree of permanence for the writer. No, it doesn't. If You have that in your head, of course you cannot plant. Right? It's a standard medical school for me, except my postdoc. Don't let yourself go there. It is a way for the writer to understand more clearly ideas and concepts. Horizontal axis, horizontal axis, horizontal axis. It's a way for the writer to participate in the world by sharing his feelings. Is it a way for you, is your writing a way for you to participate in the world? Yes. But not by sharing your feelings or your thoughts, but by changing other people's things. That's how it is. It's a way for the writer to sharpen thinking and organizational skills. And you see how skewed this is towards students. There's a way for the writer to enjoy the personal thrill and satisfaction of communicating his own personal ideas with you. I will say it again, your writing is not communicating anything about me. That's not his job. His job is to change the way your readers think. Now people look at me and say, well, that must mean you're lying. No. It's not like there's only two options in the world. Right? Communicating your inner thoughts or lying. It's not. You don't understand the function. Sometimes the function of something I say is to communicate my inner belief. If I'm on trial, in some sense, I literally had an FBI agent in my office this morning. He's got great details. It's actually true. So sometimes I sort of have this, okay, I need to know about the inner part of you. Sometimes I'm sitting with a friend who's just gotten some really bad health news. And my language is not about her. It's about her. The idea that language has only one function, symphony, harmony, and method. You have to think of it. I urge you to think of language as having many different functions. The function of an academic piece is not to communicate your ideas, but to change the ideas of the existing community. Now, sometimes you do that by communicating your ideas. No. But understand what it's for. And understand that your training has been all about revealing your head. You've been trained, it's in your blood. That's what you're supposed to do when you write. And that's just not good. So, go to the bottom. Welcome to the world, a new world. We may thus expect a thorough exteriorization of knowledge with respect to the knower, at whatever point he or she may occupy in the knowledge process. The old principle that the acquisition of knowledge is indissociable from the training of minds, training of individuals, becoming obsolete. And will become ever more so. The relationship. Here's what he's talking about. When I was in school, and somebody said, oh, she's amazing. This professor, Professor so-and-so, she's amazing. What we talked about how much she had to know. We said, she knows more about this. She's forgotten more than I will ever know. What is saying here is that knowledge no longer has anything to do with the inside of individual heads. Now, you talk about somebody being a great professor, what are you talking about? You're talking about what they have, he or she has done in this exterior space between heads. Now it's not how smart they are, how much they know, it's what they've done in the space between heads. What they've experienced. What they've done out there. That's your job. It's not to reveal the interior of your head. It's to change what's going on in the space between heads. Or how about you talk about the construction of knowledge. This is very unpleasant for lots of people. The relationship between the suppliers and users of knowledge, the knowledge they supply and use, that is your relationship to your knowledge, is now tending and will increasingly tend to assume the form already taken by the relationship of commodity producers and consumers to the commodities they produce and consume. That is, the form of knowledge. Your relationship to your own knowledge is the same as the relationship of a farmer to the wheat or a miner to the coal. The relationship is a form of value. And I bet for many of you, it isn't for you. People don't like it. I get it, but they don't like it. But I can tell you, that's the way it is. All right, now let's get out of the stratosphere and get down to some nuts and bolts. The next few pages just summarize what I've been talking about. Go to page 8. because, if, and unless, and talk about words like but, although, however, inconsistent, and anomaly. These words are all serving the same function in this text. These are transition words, as he rightly said, or flow words. These are not. Anomaly is a noun, inconsistent is an adjective. But can you see what all these have in common? Anomaly, inconsistent, but, however, although. These are flow words, but these are not. So what does this list have in common? However, but, although, inconsistent, anomaly. We create tension. Good word for it. Tension. What's some other words? Challenge. Good. Contradiction. We use the word for all of this, instability. We use two words. First of all, we use instability. It's not magic. I have no trouble at all if you want to use the words like tension, and read my handwriting. Challenge, contradiction, red flag. We find the word instability to be helpful. Because here's what we think is one general way to talk about it. It's not magic. It's just helpful. And that is, a lot of people come out of school with a model for writing at the beginning of the text that's basically in the mode of explanation. That is, they think that what you should do is give background or something like definitions, and then move to something like a thesis. Notice this is all very much on the positivistic model. That is, knowledge starts by a solid foundation. You have a solid foundation of previous knowledge, you have a solid foundation of a definition, you have a solid foundation of, here's the worst one of all, generalizations. Right? So many people have been taught this model, they don't even know they're using it. You open with a generalization, you move to a specific thesis, then you talk about the thesis, then you move out to a generalization at the end. They call it the marquee glass model of writing. Wow, you don't want to do this. You really don't want to do this. Right? Instead, you open with what I show you on page 8 is a problem. Whose problem? Got a specific set of reasons. Not, which is what you're doing right now, very likely, your problem. I see all kinds of texts that have the language of, dear reader, I have this problem that really interests me. Sometimes you have this sense of, ever since I was young, I've been fascinated by fill in the blank. And now I want you to fund me for a year of solving my problem, of not knowing enough about blank. Right? Wrong problem. Wrong location of the problem. Problem needs to be located, not necessarily in the readers, but in something the readers paramount. For academics, it's something the readers want to understand. For non-academics, it's something the problem that the readers want to fix. So, for example, I know nobody argued with in education, but if you want to get funding in a grant for studying something on education, you start with the problem in the world. You got an education system that's clearly broken. It's a problem. It's a problem the readers care about. Probably not the readers' problem. They actually probably have pretty good education. They probably are sending their kids to pretty good schools, but they care about their problem. Right? They locate problems in specific reading communities. This is very different than general background definition. Then you move to a solution. And of course, notice your thesis can be a solution only if readers perceive the problem. Sometimes I say to people, this thesis, is it a solution to a problem? They say, yeah, of course it is. Okay, so where did you say that the problem is? It's not there. And gotta be there. Not gotta be there. 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, it's gotta be there. But the readers consider it's a solution to it. Now, in very general terms, and I'm just going to sketch this out quickly, you find that problems have two chief characteristics. One is the situation has to be unstable. That is, you have to generate a sense of instability. Words like but, however, inconsistent, although, anomaly show the situation to be inconsistent, unstable. And you see the crucial difference in why so many writers are so bad at this. Look at this model. This model is a model of stability and continuity. This model is a model that says this thesis validity is exactly but it being continuous with something that we already know to be valid. So the language that people use is a language of continuity and consistency. The horrible irony is the readers are actually searching for language of instability, inconsistency, and tension. So, the crucial point I want to make is we're back to this interference pattern. People say, well, look, I just want to talk at this point about consistency. I want to show the continuity between what I'm saying and what comes before. That's what I want to do at this part of my text. What happens if the readers are looking at that moment of your text for a problem? What if they're looking to decide whether it's valuable by whether or not they have a problem? It's not neutral. They're looking for something that shows them inconsistency. You are giving them language of continuity. You are interfering with their reading process. They're slowing down. They're getting confused. They're getting aggravated. And they can stop 2 paragraphs into the text. 2 paragraphs. They're done. Because what they're looking for is value, and you're using language that's not neutral. It is contradicting and interfering with their sense of identifying value. Okay. There's a second point, which a lot of academics really dislike. Some don't mind it at all, which we call the language of costs and benefits. And we differentiate that for a reason. What we mean is, not always, but very often, you need to use code language to your readers to show them that the instability imposes a cost on them. Not on you, on them. Or conversely, that the instability, if it's solved, offers a benefit to them. The language is different. There's a language of cost and a language of benefit. There's a version of saying, dear reader, dear important reader, you were brilliant, you've advanced this enormously, we're so grateful. There's this little inconsistency in your work. Now, they want to know, well, does that inconsistency cost us anything? Because guess what? You know what about my work? That depends on inconsistency. Much of it doesn't make any difference. Is the inconsistency you're pointing out costing us anything? Or you can say to them, hey, there's inconsistency in your work. If you improve it, you get this benefit from it. Those are different coded languages. I urge you to pay attention to the actual journals that you're imagining publishing in and see whether or not there's a pattern of language of benefit and language of cost. There may not be a pattern. You may see both. But if there's a pattern, you know what my advice is going to be. Use it. Follow it. Rhetorics, the published articles will show you the language that works. Right there in front of you, if you just look at it. So, skip past page 9, page 10. This is just some explanations of some bad habits. Oh, yes, please. Oh, the literature review. Yeah, okay, sure. Right. Okay, no, I'm happy to talk. Talking about the lit review. Let's start by doing this. I'll specifically talk about a literature review. I just did a terrible thing to whoever, poor people who are actually going to watch this. All right, let's talk about that. First of all, writing a lit review as a PhD student is one of the hardest things there is to do. It's incredibly hard because you don't know who your readers are. Let's talk about a straight teacher reading a lit review. What is the function of a lit review for the teacher who is not reading it to change her view about the world, but is reading it to judge you? What's the function of a lit review for that reader? To show that you understood it, right? That's perfectly clear. Is that its function in a professional text? Is that its function in a professional text? You think they're reading this to find out whether you know the stuff about anything? What's its function in a professional text? It has several. Which one? What's the function of a lit review in a professional text? Ego massaging? That's a real function. I got no problem with that. People think it's a real function. Ego massaging is a function. Credibility is a function. Forget if you know, credibility is a function. Yeah, but I hate the language of moving forward, right? There you go. You know how to, no, you see the difference? You see the difference? Here's what professional good lit reviews, and I didn't include them in this handout, but you send me an email, I'll send you some. Really good professional lit reviews will use the lit review to enrich the problem. Instead of saying, here's what a student lit review says. In 1998, he said this. In 2000, he said this. In 2002, he said this. In 2005, he's sorry for the he's, but I'm looking at a bunch of he's here, right? A professional lit review says what? In 2001, he said this, but in 2004, he said something which, if we're smart, we realize it's intentional. And then in 2005, he said this, which complicates the situation here, but even more complicates it if we put that in motion with what he said back in 2001. Now we have layers of complexity, complication, and tension. Now, can we say I'm moving forward? Yeah, but you notice I'm not moving forward from stability. I've now enhanced a sense of instability. And if you're really good, you hype costs. You start saying, wow, not only is there a little tension there, but it's a tension that matters as this community as we go forward, because it suggests that not only were they wrong, but we're wrong as we move forward based on their ideas. So it's not just them, and the rest of us. Are we moving forward? Yes. But from instability, not from stability. That's a big difference. So, for example, let's take a couple of examples of this, because perfectly, we can use these examples to talk further more about lit reviews. Page 12. Here's an instance from Bill Sewell, who was just a terrific writer. Ever since Herodotus, historians have written about events. Battles, alliances, scandals, conquests, conspiracies, revolts, royal successions, reforms, elections, religious revivals, assassinations, discoveries. Momentous events have always been the bread and butter of narrative history. Now, if you talk to some high school teachers and you say to them, what is he doing there? They will say to you, oh, he's giving background. No, he's really not. When do we find out that he's not giving background? The next word is but. He's not giving background. He's building a problem. And the differences are enormous. So many faculty members will say to students, you know what, this paper